The perfect Matter-over-Thread Smart Switch doesn't exist. Actually, the Haojai Matter-over-Thread Smart Switches from DKAI are genuinely brilliant. They're completely Matter native switches, which support single, double and long press. They have 6 different buttons, and the powered version has 3 relays built in and a motion sensor, and the buttons light up. I'm James Bruce, you're watching matteralpha.com, and today I'm getting super excited about light switches. So there are 2 versions of the Haojai switch available, and I wish they differentiated the product box a little more because they're dramatically different. I'll talk about both, but basically the wall-powered one, which replaces an actual light switch, is the one with all the bells and whistles. The battery-powered one offers the same 6 scene buttons, but it doesn't do any relays or motion sensing. It's literally just a scene controller. Both, however, are Matter-over-Thread and Matter native, I'll add, but of course, only the actual in-wall switch is going to contribute to your thread network mesh and act as a repeater. The battery-powered one is a sleepy endpoint, meaning it won't help the mesh. So when I say these are Matter native, what I mean is that these are the first Matter product I've reviewed that doesn't actually need an app. In fact, I'm not sure there even is one. The manual certainly doesn't mention it. You just put it in pairing mode by pressing the top and bottom buttons on the left side, then you connect it to your smart home platform of choice. That's it. And it works just out of the box in terms of adding it to your smart home. This is the dream. This is it. This exemplifies the Matter protocol, so full marks there. So let's talk about the hardware. Both come in 3 different colors: white, silver, or black. This is the silver version. However, in each case, the shell of the body here is black. The battery-powered one is simple, so we'll start there. It's about 10 mil, 1 centimeter deep, and has a magnetic plate on the back, which you can then stick to a wall. So it can detach, but really it isn't meant to do that. That's just to change the battery, I guess. Obviously, it doesn't need any other fittings or power, just stick it where you want. Simple. The buttons don't, however, light up as they do on the battery model. It does have a tiny LED in each corner to indicate what was pressed, but not the actual icon on the button itself. So the powered model is designed to fit an 86mm square fittings box. That's not negotiable, that's pretty standard though. And it also needs at least 25mm of depth inside that box. I say at least because it's likely you'll have a mess of wiring inside the box too, so ideally 35-40mm. As it is, mine was too small, so I had to buy a spacer as well that brings the whole fixture forwards. And speaking of wiring, the critical requirement for most smart switches is to have a neutral connection. If you're not sure what I mean by that, let's take a quick detour to explain neutral wiring, because it was actually pretty new to me and I learned something. In the past, light switches were very simple things. So to save on costs, they were just placed on the live part of the circuit from the light. So you switch it on, the circuit is completed, you switch it off, then the live wire is cut, and there's now no power that flows to the light. The neutral wire was sent only to the light fixture itself. From about 1985 in the UK at least, the building regulations were changed and required neutrals to be available in the light switch too, meaning that the switch itself could draw some power if needed, presumably because the idea of light up switches became a thing for accessibility or just for future proofing. Now, it's not obvious just by looking at a switch if you have neutral wiring or not. So until you open up that light switch, you won't know. So it's important that you do that first before buying any smart switches. If you don't have neutral wiring, it's not an easy task to add one in. You're talking about ripping up the wall, pulling through a new wire, and then replastering, repainting. There's also some slight hacks for getting a small amount of power to the light switch even when the light switch is off. So basically you add a capacitor across the live and neutral up in the light fixture, but these are not a reliable solution as far as I can tell. They may not be up to building code, and unless your switch specifically supports it, they may not even produce enough power, certainly not for something as bulky and feature-packed as this. I certainly wasn't going to risk a fire in my loft in order to test this. So for most of us, if you don't have a neutral, a rewire is a massive undertaking and just not viable. So here's how to tell, and if it wasn't obvious before doing this, you absolutely must switch off the breaker and use a tester pen to detect any live current. Don't go poking around anything that still has AC flowing. Even your poultry 110 volts in the USA is enough to kill. And I can tell you from experience, it's not pleasant. If you open up your socket, you're going to find at least an earth, usually green-brown, connected to the metal box. That's the shell it sits in. You'll also see a bundle of red or perhaps brown wires going into the switch. So there'll be at least 2 terminals for a one-way switch or 4 terminals for a 3-way switch with 1 in, 3 out. If you see nothing else, then you don't have a neutral and there's nothing you can do about it. Smart switches are not compatible. If you see a bundle of blue or black wires as well, though perhaps seemingly unconnected and just sitting in the box, that's going to be your neutral. Unfortunately, in our house, only a tiny piece of it actually has neutrals, the bits that were built in the 90s, so we were fairly limited in where we can install this. It is what it is though, and like I say, without spending huge amounts of money on a rewire, it's not really possible, so do check first. So back to the Haojai switches. So the only slight annoyance for me about the design is the iconography on the front here. It's printed on and it's translucent, so as you can see, the light shines through. And if you do happen to have the exact light fixtures in your room, consisting precisely of downlighter, LED strip and overhead hanging light, which are the ones connected to the relays, then brilliant, perfect. If you don't, then it starts to make less sense. The flick buttons that I reviewed got around this by having stickers. Okay, it looked a bit cheap, but at least it was customizable. Now, there isn't really a solution to that. You can't have both light up translucent plastic icons set in the buttons as well as customization, but I thought it worth noting. So let's talk about functionality and features. I'm only going to talk here about the AC powered one, the one that you actually connect to a light switch, because the battery powered one, while still very cool, is a subset of the features of this in that it only has the 6 smart buttons and they function in precisely the same way as the AC powered one. So 6 buttons, 3 relays and 1 motion sensor. The way this works is that the relays are controlled by the first 3 buttons here on the left hand side. Now that's not configurable, but you don't have to use the relays, of course. If you're replacing a single light switch, then you can choose which relay will control that light. Also, by default, these 3 buttons are smart buttons too. So if you press button 3 once, you will turn on the relay connected to that, but you will also fire button 3's event for single press. And that means that you can tie it into other actions as well, daisy chain them on the same button. Now, of course, the relays themselves can also be controlled from your phone, from your smart home system, just as a power switch. So those devices aren't limited to just a literal physical control on here, they can also be remotely controlled. Now, for some reason, 9 buttons are added to your system when you install these, which threw me off a bit at first, but it actually makes sense when you think about it. The first 3 buttons are the relay states and on-off switches, so you can turn them on and off, and they will also report back to you whether they are currently on and off. The next 6 are the smart button functionality, as in there are 6 buttons that, even though they share a physical switch, they have a distinct functionality with the double, the long press and the single press, and those buttons don't report power states because they're not powering anything. The other interesting feature is the motion sensor. So all of these buttons, relays and the motion sensor are automatically added when you add the Matter device to your smart home. You don't have to scan in 10 different codes or anything. It just gets added as a batch, and then you'll find a new sensor has been added presenting itself as a presence sensor. So this has 2 jobs. On the physical device itself, it turns on a dim light for all of the buttons when you approach, so you can see what you're pressing. But you can also use it as a motion sensor data point in your home for automation. So if you wanted to, say, automatically turn on your kitchen lights, whether that's through the relays or whatever smart lighting you had, then you can use that. And in my experience, it was very reliable. There's no delay in transmission. The moment someone approached, it knew it and reported it. So it's really good as a dedicated sensor there, probably because it's permanently powered, of course, and it's always a part of the Thread mesh. So there's no need to wake up, join, and tell you that something happened. And just to reiterate, the battery-powered model doesn't have a motion sensor at all. It's just the smart scene buttons. Now, precisely what you can do with the smart buttons is going to depend entirely on your platform of choice. And to be honest, I found the options in Apple Home to be really limiting. Of course, it's easy to do things like turning on smart lights or plugs that are already in your smart home, activating scenes that you've added, but I wanted to set up something a little cooler, like a party mode button that would start a Spotify playlist on a Sonos speaker, that sort of thing. Nope, not a chance. Apple only lets you control HomePods, and they only let you use Apple Music. I did, however, manage it using Home Assistant. Although that's well outside the scope of this review, if you'd like to check that out, I have a full written tutorial over at Matter Alpha for how you go about setting that up. And the great thing about this is that because of the multi-admin mode of Matter, devices can be shared easily between systems and used simultaneously. So you just open up Apple Home, open the device and turn on pairing mode, and then you can go ahead and add that to any other Matter controller and everything just works. So I added these to Home Assistant and then I was able to do some more hacky DIY stuff with them. So now I have a dedicated K-pop Demon Hunters party mode button. Brilliant! Check out my tutorial, I'll add a link in the description. So look, if it wasn't obvious, I really love these switches. They are exactly what I wanted in a smart light switch and more, as well as up to 3 relay controls. There's 6 buttons, each with 3 actions, and a motion sensor that works reliably with no delays. It also helps with the thread mesh coverage in your home to extend the network. These are pretty close to perfect. The only limitations are not really the fault of these switches at all. You do need neutral wiring in your switch, and there's no workaround for that. Not one that I would consider safe anyway. Hopefully these will be available to a wider market soon. They are Matter certified already, but just awaiting full launch in the USA and worldwide. So do keep an eye out for these Haojai Smart Switches. Until next time, I'm James Bruce. You've been watching MatterAlpha.com reviews. Hit like and consider subscribing for more reviews, tutorials and explainers on all things Matter, and do be sure to check out MatterAlpha.com for a full database of Matter compatible products. Until next time.